What's up, plant junkies? Jody here for another plant video from plantjunkiecreations.com. Today I'm going to be going over the basic plant care of this beautiful plant known as the Callisia fragrans. She's also known to be called the basket plant or the grandfather's pipe plant. I'm going to share how I successfully propagated this plant, take this water cutting, and transplant it into this pot. So stay tuned. This large plant right here is a couple years old, and originally when I had gotten her, she was this big. I had gotten her as a gift from another plant that I had ordered, had never heard of it, almost sold her, but I'm really glad that I didn't. I learned a lot from her, and she's been very interesting and a pleasure to watch. She reminds me of a bromeliad. She also reminds me of a plant that is in the Dracenia family as far as how the stalk grows up and the leaves kind of go down there. But she's not. She's a Callisia. If I were to rate the caretake of this plant, I would rate this as another easy care plant and great for beginners. There's not a whole lot to her, and she is drought tolerant, and she puts off these long runners, which make it easy to propagate. The light requirement for this plant can tolerate low to bright indirect light, but thrives best in that medium indirect light. As long as I have owned her, I've always had her in an eastern window, receiving that morning sunshine exposure. But during the winter, she's not receiving a whole lot of sunlight, so she can tolerate that low light as well. The water requirement for this plant, like I always say, just depends on what type of pot you're using and what size. So in this tin can right here, I have a 5-inch terracotta pot in there, and I will water this plant on a 7 to 14 day cycle. She is drought tolerant. I almost forget about her. She'll survive. She's a trooper like that. But I'm currently actually watering her on a weekly basis because she develops these runners with pups on the end. This is one of them, and I am trying to soil propagate them right now. So if I water her on a weekly basis where those pups are at, that's going to encourage that root growth. But I'll go a little bit more in detail in the propagation section. The soil requirement for this plant, you can get away with using any indoor potting mix. Just make sure to add a little bit of perlite to help with that drainage so she's not staying wet for too long. What I'm going to be transplanting that water cutting into is this mix right here, which is Fox Farm Happy Frog with added perlite. The fertilizer requirement for most plants, you typically want to fertilize 2 times a month during the growing season. But with this plant, she's a really non-fussy plant and grows like a weed. She doesn't really need a whole lot. But when I do remember to fertilize her, I will use these and I rotate between them, and that's Gringo Rasta Rise Up or Super Thrive. Let's talk propagation. This plant is really easy to propagate because out of nowhere she just develops legs and just starts going crazy. And what these are called are runners, similar to strawberries. And the goal for this plant is basically to find another pot or dirt and make home there. What I've done is I'm kind of limited in the way that this will bend, but what I've done is I took one of these legs and I just kind of put it on the dirt, pinned it down, and I'm watering on a weekly basis to encourage root growth. If you notice on these runners, this isn't a very good example, but there are these little nubs. That's where the roots are going to form. Today I will take one of them out so you can see how much root growth there has been. I think this is about 2 weeks old, and I can't even take her out. She's planted. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut her right here and just let her make home there. And then with this one, you can see her root. She's about 1 inch long. So now that she's already made root, she doesn't need that vine to give her nutrients to grow. She's good to go. The goal for this plant is to just let her fill up this pot. And when she flowers, she puts off these like white, very fine like flowers. And then another way to propagate this plant is at the end of that runner is in water. So these are all about 2 weeks to a week old. I'm not really sure. It really took super quick. She propagated just as fine and as quick in water as well. So today I'm going to pot her up. So I'm going to put her in this tall little 2.5 inch square pot. See the purple on her? She's just really pretty. You'll want to water her on a weekly basis because she is a water propagation, so you want to get that root acclimated to the soil. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to click on that like button. Also, if you're interested in plant care content, click on that icon to subscribe to my channel.